Good evening. Welcome to the Woodchuck Report on this Friday, January 10th. There we go. One of these days. I'm your host, V. Chase, and today I have with us, fellow guest host Jacob Rodriguez.
Thank you for having me, man. Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. That's actually, yes, you're right. This is the first one of the year.
First one of the decade.
Yes, first one of the year, first one of the decade. I actually had a conversation with my dad about when technically the decade starts.
Yeah.
We're still disagreeing on
Different
that.
show, different show.
Yeah. Anywho, so today our big show today is Iran, or as most Americans like to say, Iran. So, as you know, there's a lot of stuff going on with Iran, and right now I just, first thing first, this whole temptation of will there be war, won't there be war, we're going to World War III, and all sorts of, are they going to reinstate the draft? So, but first thing, I want a little philosophical thing of, what is the point of waging war? So, a little extra thing I picked up on. So, what is the point of waging war? Which has never been an easy question to answer. Some theorists have argued that it is a way for one group to force another to do its bidding, or that it's merely the continuation of politics by other means, a negotiation over political aims conducted through violence rather than words. The latter formulation was coined by Karl von Clausewitz, a 19th century Prussian general who ultimately rejected it, calling war a fusion of rational political pursuits with animalistic instinct. Or maybe war is the failure of policy, an indication of where leaders have miscalculated or misread an adversary's intention, a view that became more popular after the World War, or as some contemporary theorists argue, it is an expression of the aggressor's internal politics of social mores. But while the point of war may be disputed, a difficult question subject to centuries of investigation and debate is costs or not, and they never really have been. So, that's a little excerpt on war. So the whole big shindig thing is the U.S.-Iran. And I have a brief history here of our relationship and when it all began and how it all started. So it all comes back to 1953, the overthrow of Mohammad Mossadegh. For those of you who don't remember the history, he was Iran's democratically elected prime minister, and he had the unfortunate idea of trying to nationalize Iran's oil industry. Now, at the time, its oil industry was privatized and mostly controlled by BP. If that rings a bell to you, it's called British Petroleum, and they've had a history of doing some not so good things. So BP is British owned, and they at the time was the majority owners of the oil industry. So when technically be Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh decided to nationalize it, BP really did not like that. So, to the CIA, they orchestrated an overthrow of Iran's prime minister in 1953. So, 1979, you're going to have the Iranian Revolution. This is the big one that was popular on TV for quite some time. It was the U.S.-backed Shah of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, definitely pronounced that wrong, who was eventually forced to leave the country on the 16th of January following months of demonstration and strikes against his rule by secular and religious opponents. Shortly after that, 2 weeks later, the Islamic religious leader Ayatollah Khomeini, which should be pretty big in the news now, he returned from exile. Following a referendum, the Islamic Republic of Iran is proclaimed on April 1st. 79 through 81, we have the U.S. Embassy hostage crisis. The U.S. Embassy in Tehran is seized by protesters on November of 79, and American hostages are held inside for 444 days. The final 52 hostages are freed in January of 81, the day U.S. President Ronald Reagan's inauguration. Another 6 Americans had escaped the embassy or smuggled out of Iran by a team posing as filmmakers, which, if you don't remember, it's been multiple movies, but the most famous one would be one Argo by Ben Affleck. Then in 85, 86, you had the Iran-Contra scandal, which the U.S. secretly ships weapons to Iran, allegedly in exchange for Tehran's help in freeing U.S. hostage held by Hezbollah militants, which is a Lebanese-backed military group. The profits are illegally channeled to rebels in Nicaragua, creating a political crisis for Reagan. Then you have in 1988, the Iranian passenger plane shot down. The American warship USS Vincennes shot down an Iranian air flight in the Gulf on the 3rd of July, killing all 290 people on board. The U.S. says the Airbus A300 was mistaken for a fighter jet. As a previous radar tech, how? Most of the victims are Iranian pilgrims on their way to Mecca. Then in 2002, you have the Axis of Evil, in which in his State of the Union address, President George Bush denounces Iran as part of an axis of evil, along with Iraq and North Korea. Obviously, the speech causes outrage in Iran. Then starting in the 2000s, continuing, in 2002, an Iranian opposition group reveals that Iran is developing nuclear facilities, including in a uranium enrichment plant. The U.S. accuses of Iran of clandestine nuclear weapons program, which Iran denies, A decade of diplomatic activity and intermittent Iranian engagement with the UN's nuclear watchdog follows, but several rounds of sanctions are imposed by the UN, the US, and the EU against the ultra-conservative President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's government. This causes Iran's currency to lose 2/3 of its value in 2 years. Then in 2013 through 2016, we have in September of 2013, a month after Iran's new moderate president Hassan Rouhani takes office, he and former President Obama, who spoke by phone, the first such top-level conversation in more than 30 years. 2015, after a flurry of diplomatic activity, you have Iran agrees to a long-term deal in its nuclear program with a group of world powers known as the P5+1, the US, UK, France, China, Russia, and Germany, which under the accord, Iran agrees to limit its sensitive nuclear activities and allow international inspectors in return for the lifting of crippling economic sanctions. Then in 2019, May of 18, US President Trump, he abandons the nuclear deal before reinstating economic sanctions against Iran and threatening to do the same to countries and firms that continue buying its oil. Iran's economy falls into a deep recession. Obviously, relations between the US and Iran worsen, and in May 2019, the US tightens the sanctions targeting Iran's oil exports. In response, Iran becomes counter-pressure campaign. Then in May and June of 19, there were multiple explosions which hit 6 oil tankers in the Gulf of Oman, and the U.S. accuses of Iran, naturally. And on 20th of June, Iranian forces shot down a U.S. military drone over the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. says it was over international waters, but Iran says it was over their territory. And then Iran begins rolling back key commitments on the nuclear deal in July. And then I'll let you take over from there.
Yeah, so obviously a lot has happened in just the first 10 days of 2020, and it feels very chaotic. And as V said, this kind of started back in 2015 under the Barack Obama administration when we started putting an Iranian nuclear deal, which involved the US, EU, and the UN. And so that pretty much had a lot of sanction reliefs under Iran, which helped them tremendously when it comes to boosting their trade and new investments in the country. And it kind of just gave diplomacy between the West and the Middle East. We have Israel and Saudi Arabia that did not like that at the time. Flash forward to last year under the Trump administration, Donald Trump pulled out of the Iranian nuclear deal and slapping a ton of sanctions on it. And one of the most notable one is medicine. And now flash forward to within the past week, Donald Trump assassinated Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. And this is a giant deal because he had just finished fighting against ISIS in a successful manner. And the people of Iran did view him as a more positive influence, but we did not see him as that. He was a general that apparently Secretary of State Michael Pompeo mentioned that he was in the process of endangering Americans in the region. I have some strong thoughts about why Americans are in the region in the first place, but we can get onto that later. It's also something to note that we were actually allies with Soleimani not long ago when it came to fighting ISIS in the Middle East, but for some reason that no longer happened. Soleimani was also lowering tensions between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which we are partners with as well. And so flash forward to within the next 2 days, obviously there's going to be repercussions. We assassinated an Iranian general, and so their Iranian repercussion was firing missiles at an Iraqi military base that hosts both Iraqis and U.S. troops. Fortunately, there were no casualties. So that is the latest in terms of repercussions that Iran has done to us. Unfortunately, there was a passenger plane that was shot down recently that had both Ukrainians, Iranians, and Canadians. And Prime Minister Trudeau said that he had intel saying that it was the Iranians that shot down the plane, and Iranians are denying that, but it's a back and forth thing. As of right now, it's not confirmed as to who exactly do it, but it looks like it was indeed the Iranians as to right now. I don't know if you have anything to add in terms of that.
No, that's pretty much the state of what's going on.
Yeah, so that's the past 10 days. And this pretty much leads to, further tensions into us going into possibly war with Iran. And I don't know if you were alive. I don't know if you remember during 2003, during the Iraq War, there's a lot of propaganda pushing after 9/11 saying that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. There are a lot of notable people who said that they did not, or they did have weapons of mass destruction. Now we know that they did not, and it was a bunch of propaganda push at the time. And as of right now, it looks like it's a similar pattern we're seeing where the Secretary of State and anyone in the Donald Trump administration is being very vague as to why we assassinated a general. And there's some things that we can say about, did he actually endanger Americans? The word terrorism is used a lot when it comes to what he did and some of the things he did. Am I saying he's a good person? Absolutely not. But he was an Iranian general, and some of the actions that he took, yes, it caused innocent lives to be lost, especially in the region. But guess what? Our American generals have done things where it caused innocent lives in the Middle East. Going back to the Iraq War, we had thousands of soldiers that died for no reason. Also, there were hundreds of thousands of civilians in the Iraq area who died for no reason because we were not supposed to be in that area. I don't know if you want to jump in at all and mention anything in terms of the Iraq War and what we see now.
No, I think it seems like a repeat, maybe not exactly a repeat, but more of a very similar lines of, something happens and now all the top military people are coming out of woodwork saying, oh, no, a lot of blame. Obviously, we know Iran shot the rockets. Mm-hmm. No question about that. They say they shot the rockets. Yeah. Right now, as for the plane being shot down, and everyone's saying, "Oh, Iran has it." Well, coincidentally, the people who are saying Iran did it are the same people who don't like Iran. Yeah. Which is like maybe there's merit. They could be very right. Mm-hmm. Maybe Iran did do it. Iran obviously says they didn't do it. And until I believe they found the black box now. So hopefully in the next couple of days or so, they can pull the recordings and check out the telemetry data and be able to interpret it as to what happened.
And I think this just speaks on behalf of the very moronic repercussions of the Trump administration doing these, because what they did was they assassinated a general from another country without thinking it through. Without the repercussions that could happen, because now it not only is affecting us and them, it's now affecting other countries as well. And to get an idea as to, obviously we don't want war. That's the worst case scenario. World War III, that's something that was trending very much on social media. Yeah, it was. But what a World War III would look like, it would be Russia, China, Iran, and us, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. And obviously that's not going to be a pretty picture. And, even in the First World War, we said that's going to be the last World War, and then we had World War II. And just going back to the whole Soleimani thing, yeah, he obviously, he's done a lot of terrible things in the region, but he was also helping to fight ISIS. But I just don't understand the hypocrisy a lot of both the Trump administration and a lot of, President Trump supporters who will, have a blind eye for a lot of the things and will support him no matter what. We are allies with Saudi Arabia, which, I don't know if many people know this, but they killed a Washington Post journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. He was butchered in the area. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Donald Trump has said that he fell in love with Kim Jong-un. And Kim Jong-un has concentration camps in his own country. Donald Trump has said things like, oh, his people love him, which I guarantee you it's either brainwashed or if you don't love him, you're going to die. So this is the hypocrisy that we keep seeing with the Trump administration, because we see that they say that we're going to attack terrorists, and they also mentioned that we're going to make America more safe, but in reality, we haven't been more safe. We've endangered other people in the region. After we assassinated General Soleimani, we sent 3,500 troops to Iraq, and I don't know what those troops are doing, but they're pretty much sitting ducks in the area simply because you can't invade a country with 3,500 troops. I'm not exactly sure what the plan is. I know with your background, you might have a better idea as to what the point of sending 3,500 troops is, but this is, again, reflecting on what could possibly happen, mirroring what happened in 2003 with the Iraq War.
I'm looking more of this as, mirroring what's going to happen with, say, World War One. Because everyone who don't remember World War One, it started off with the Serbian assassination of Prince Archduke Ferdinand, and so that was the whole Austrian-Serbian thing. And so when that happened, pretty much all the alliances started kicking in. You had Germany allied with the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Serbians were allied with. Now I forget all my alliances because there's a whole mismatch of you had random countries allied with random people, which from the outside made no sense. I'm sure it made sense from the inside, historical European reasons. But boom, next thing you know, you have France, Great Britain involved in the war against Germany. The Austrian-Hungarian Empire was involved. Poland was involved. I'm trying to think for my history, who else was involved? Next thing you know, millions, half the continent has been killed.
Yeah.
Russians came in, and so it's like, where did Russia come from?
Yeah, and with that, we look back in history and we try to think, okay, this is what we don't do anymore. Yeah. And now we're here where we are and on the brink of it, almost circling around. And I also think it's important to mention how, a lot of people, maybe they're not well aware of this, but they have the mindset, oh, why do they hate us? Why do they hate us? They're the one who's provoking us. They're killing our people. Well, yeah, no, they shouldn't be killing our people, but we also shouldn't be in their area. We both occupy, violate territories, and kill civilians in the Middle East, and we expect no repercussions from it. If you look at a map on the military bases that wrap around the Middle East, it's insane. And, to put into perspective, what if there was another country's military base that was surrounding areas of Wisconsin? Or what if there was another military base that was surrounding other areas in Texas? Do you have something to say?
No, let's not use Wisconsin. Not exactly.
Okay. All right. I thought you had something more.
Apologies to Wisconsinites over there.
Regardless, you understand the point that I'm saying. No, and we'd obviously ask him to leave, or we would have near to violent reactions to that. And that's the same thing that's happening here. That's something that not a lot of people talk about. And another thing is that a lot of this isn't speaking on behalf of all people in one party, but we had this silly incident of people demanding to stand for the flag because they have to respect the troops. The most disrespectful thing that you can do to the troops is send them to a war that they're guaranteed to not come back from, and have that repercussion of them coming back with missing limbs, with PTSD, and not giving the proper treatment that they deserve after serving. So we can eliminate that by not sending them in the first place, okay? So that's one thing that I don't really understand. When we are in someone else's territory and telling them that, no, we are helping you and we are making it better, history shows that we are not making it better. The USA has a history of regime change, not only in the Middle East, but in Central and South America. Maybe this is just a little bit of close to the chest because my mom's from El Salvador and she was affected by regime change in that area in the 80s. But this is a real thing. And the sooner that people understand that, yeah, no, this happens, and by definition, we are not the good guys. Just because we live here and we have the most powerful military in the world doesn't mean we are the good guys. We are the bullies of the world. And I don't know if you saw this study recently, but they took account of people around the world saying who is the most the country to threaten world peace, and we're on top of that. We're number one when it comes to affecting world peace in this planet. And second was Kim Jong-un. Third was Russia. But no, the stuff like this is what's really frustrating. On how it's a blind. It's a blindfold as to what fake patriotism looks like in this country, and more importantly, what tribalism looks like in this country. I don't know if you have anything more to add on that.
No.
I also to note the amount of money that we're wasting right now in this unnecessary war or close to war, we can easily be using it here for education, for healthcare, for a bunch of other things that we do. Infrastructure, thank you, infrastructure. Virtually anything that will not cause war, that can actually help us and not get innocent soldiers killed.
I want my high-speed train. That's what I want. I want my high-speed train.
Yeah, no, do you have anything else to add on that?
Did we already talk about the so-called nuclear deal and the not payments that we gave?
Oh, no, this is something I did want to mention too. Yeah, the whole U.S. Embassy thing, Iraq, like they wanted to vote U.S. out of Iraq.
Yep.
Unanimous vote, they want U.S. out. They had protests outside the U.S. Embassy. President Trump said no. We're going to stay there, and not only that, if you want us to leave, you need to pay ransom for us to leave. So we're both occupying and wasting money over there, and he is now our president is now demanding another country to pay ransom for us in order for us to leave, which is absolutely moronic. I'm not really sure what his game plan for that is. And also, he was giving a press, I think he was talking to a reporter, and he says that he still wants to work out the Iran nuclear deal after pulling out. I'm not really sure what causing a war with Iran is going to help improve on the Iran nuclear deal, but it just shows the type of businessman that he is and the type of negotiating skills that he has.
Yep. All right, so let's talk about the nuclear deal. Well, actually, let's talk about the after effects of some of the payments that went into the nuclear deal. So there's a lot of talk saying that we gave money to Iran. Well, we gave money to Iran that we didn't need to. So things like, oh, the Obama administration gave billions of dollars to Iran, and gave millions of dollars elsewhere too. So let's talk about what happened. So yes, Iran did get money for the 2015 nuclear deal, which all that money was simply just frozen assets from around the world. So, and the rest was the 1.7 billion that the Obama administration sent to Iran to repay the decades-old IOU. Now, where that money came from is prior to the 1979 revolution. Remember, after we kicked out their government, and then imposed our guy who was all for us, and then his people, who turned out he was terrible for his people, and his people just literally just kicked him out. So the Iranian government paid $400 million for American military contracts that were never delivered, obviously because of the 79 revolution. And so the Obama administration agreed to reimburse that money along with $1.3 billion in interest. So that's where that $1.7 billion comes from.
I think it's also note that all the regime change that has happened and all the occupations happened, it's not just under the Trump administration. I want to be very clear. This isn't just some lefty yelling at the Trump administration. This has happened during the Obama administration as well. And as a matter of fact, the Obama administration was the one who got us involved in the famine that's happening in Yemen right now. So, again, I'm not just some lefty trashing on the Trump administration, although there's a lot to trash about the Trump administration. This has been going on under the Obama administration, under the Bush administration, for decades and decades to come, and it's something that the U.S. has just put a footprint on the Middle East. And we have that mindset is to what's ours is ours, and what's theirs is ours now. And with just a little bit of time left, I think that it's just one thing I do want to mention before I forget, and it's something that no media has been talking about, but this does play into systematic racism that we do see when it comes to what we label as a terrorist and what we label as a criminal, because this continues to go on. If we keep pushing this tension between us and Iran, what's going to happen to Iranian U.S. citizens? What's going to happen to people in Canada who are Iranian coming to this country? There are already cases of people who are Canadian or who are American trying to cross a U.S.-Canadian border and are being stopped. And this is just the beginning, and we've been seeing this for quite some time.
Yep. So with that, I believe we're going to get our maybe 3-minute mark. Anywho, so that would be it for the show. I want to thank all my watchers, however many of you there are. And so I'm going to say, there's that 3-minute mark. So.
In other news, what's his name? John Bolton said that he's willing to testify for the Senate.
That's true.
He's
That's
probably
true.
curling his toes right now, thinking that we're going to war with Iran.
Yep.
Pretty sad that we're missing out on that.
McConnell is, essentially going to try to bypass the House, which would be very. My thing about that is one thing I've always said is, it's precedent. It's really bad to set a precedent when you know it's going to turn back and get used against you. Like all these rules, like we're going to make this rule so we can avoid you.
We've seen that like the past 20 years when it came to Bill Clinton being impeached.
Yeah.
Okay, and just to go back real quick, 2011, Trump accused of Barack Obama wanting to start war with Iran to keep in power. Just going to put that out there. Also, it's funny how you mentioned that, because if you are so confident as a party that your leader did not do anything wrong, wouldn't you want as many witnesses as possible to prove to you that, no, look, these are the witnesses, and someone as John Bolton, who worked for the administration, I mean, I'm under the impression that he has some real nitty-gritty dirt on him, and he's
Probably,
just
yeah.
Maybe because he didn't get a chance to stay on the administration when we're possibly going to war in Iran.
This should be like I don't know if you remember the Seinfeld series finale, is at the very end, they paraded like pretty much every major character on Seinfeld who had something against the characters, and like, yep, keep it going. So
I do want to quote a movie that came out in the past few years that does resonate today, and I think the quote is that whenever you try to prevent a war before it starts, innocent people end up dying, and that continues to happen today. The way things are going, it probably will continue. I'm hoping it doesn't, simply because I don't want any more innocent lives lost, both on our end and in the Middle East as well.
Well, for our last minute, I would like to say, I would like to quote the nerd in me. As a Ferengi will say, Rule 34, peace is good for war. Rule 35, war is good for, peace is good for profit, war is good for profit.
Just playing into that military complex.
Yeah,
man.
someone's gonna make money off this. And with that, I'd like to say have a happy Friday, enjoy yourselves, and as usual, don't do anything I wouldn't do.